Free your mind.
There is only one rule. Do no harm. No masters, no slaves. This is Morality Matters, and today's episode, what it truly means to be moral, and why everything you've been told about morality has been a lie. You may be thinking, who am I to be talking about such incredible philosophical things? In all honesty, no one. Just a 21-year-old that seems to have gotten quite a large amount of the picture understood. You don't have to be a philosophical guru, a genius, a PhD student to simply understand what it means to be a good person. In fact, you could ask a toddler and they would probably give you a better answer than most average people on the street. And that is because what it means to be a good person is actually written on the human heart. But instead, in this day and age, we have been brainwashed and led into an illusion about what it actually means to be a good person, ranging from something as vague and ambiguous as being a nice person and smiling all the time, all the way up to dogmatic beliefs such as do this at a certain time, or do this, and all these different commandments, when actually simply morality is rather simple, rather straightforward. However, there are things we must understand. There are principles and facts of the matter that do exist, objectively, that actually have been completely done away with in the modern age. And in fact, if everyone understood these simple things, then the world would be a much better and much different place. This could easily be more than 10 hours long, and in fact in the future probably will be. But for now, you can summarise it quite easily, and it must be understood because it is the key to human freedom, especially in a time like this. So the major problem with today's society is all actually based on moral confusion, on moral ambiguity, or in fact, better put, moral relativity. Society nowadays treats morality as a belief or something that's just common sense. Like I say, being a nice person or smiling all the time, helping an old lady across the street, or maybe giving $5 to charity every month. They all may play into it, and sure, it's great to be nice and it's great to smile and things like that, but actually there are keys that must be understood to allow us to clearly understand what it means to be a good person. Not only in our beliefs, our thoughts, emotions and actions, but most importantly, actually what we support and what we advocate. So in this day and age, it's more common than not to be a moral relativist, whether you believe it or not. This, unfortunately, is the root of all evil and is the cause of societal decay. Apathy, cowardice and fear, and especially obedience without conscience. These are the things that will lead us to the slaughterhouse. There are countless examples of how this can lead us into horrible situations. Just look at Nazi Germany, look at cancel culture, look at the blind order following that exists throughout all of these examples, but most importantly, like I say in Nazi Germany, if someone is to blindly accept something on its face and believe that something's right when actually it's very much not, especially when it comes down to order following, these can be very slippery slopes, and if not, completely deadly things. Because if we are not willing to question what it means to be truly right, and if we don't hold principles of morality as close to our chest as possible and always keep them in mind to understand that there are key differences what it means to be a good person, if we don't have those at our side at all times, we're going to have troubled times. And that's in fact why I'm even here, because I've seen that morality is completely left by the wayside in this day and age, and if it continues this way, we are in for a very, very hard time. Most people can't define morality, at least not definitively. Like I say, they may say certain things or certain actions, be a nice person, be kind to others. Once again, they do play into it, but actually, you can't justifiably judge other people, and you can't say that you're a good person or cast judgment onto other people that they are good people without definitively knowing the difference between right and wrong. I'm going to start with the key importance of morality does not equal legality. Slavery was once legal. Drinking alcohol was once illegal. Gay marriage was once illegal. Being a Jew in Nazi Germany, or hiding a Jew in Nazi Germany, was also once illegal. Now, all of those things, completely different in their legality. Does that mean that they were once wrong or once right and now are the opposite? No. They are simply what was based upon what someone said, what someone wrote down, or had a fancy ritual in a black robe and said that this is what's right and wrong. Things like this are the keys to what bring us to a cage. Allowing someone to legislate what it means to be right and wrong is a very, very dangerous situation. Is there such a thing, truly, as right and wrong? Or is it just opinion? Is it based upon everyone coming together and socially agreeing, yeah, we think this is a good thing, or for now we've got to give up some of our rights to do for the greater good? You, hopefully by the end of this, if not at the end of all of the information that you see me put out, will understand that there is an objective difference, and that it doesn't ultimately matter if someone legislates one thing or not. What truly matters with morality is eternal. It will not change, it never will change, and you can discover it. Morality does not equal opinion. We see this through what I just spoke about in the court systems, in parliament, in government. Just because something's written down in a law book or a rule book does not mean that it actually is a good thing, or the opposite. There are countless examples, some that I've already given, to how time or even location can differ these things and make one thing good in one place and bad in another. If we all actually understand these simple basics to being a good person, this would all be done away with, and quite honestly, suffering would be minimal and freedom would be its absolute maximum. So, unfortunately, folks, the ego has a problem with absolutes. The ego has a problem with objectivity. You may think morality is just a cultural thing, or there's my truth versus your truth. This is a huge thing at the moment, especially in the New Age movement of speak your truth. When in fact, you will come to see, if hopefully you already do understand, there is only the truth, not my truth. So what must be understood is subjective versus objective. The subjective is that which is man-made, designed, down to opinion. I might like a certain type of cheesecake, whereas you might not. That doesn't mean either of us is true or correct. That is subjective, it's up to opinion. It's personal, it's opinion, and these are definitely justified. There are things that can be subjective, there are things that can be opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to being a good person, there is a truth to the matter. Not because I say so, and not because I create such things, and not because anyone, no matter what they wear, what they say, and what they've done in the past, or what building they're in, or country that they're in, that does not matter. All that does matter is simply what is written on the human heart, and that which brings the most freedom. The objective, however, is something that is infinite. It is eternal, constant, unchanging. It is external from us. It does not matter on opinion. It does not matter on feelings or location, anything like that. It is matter of fact. Hopefully you should already understand this, but it must be deeply understood when we're talking about morality. I'm not going to sit here for hours on end and explain why morality is objective and it's not subjective. That's for another time, and that's for another teacher. But in fact, if you are not willing to understand that morality has an objective truth to it, I think you've got a bit more research to do. Because if simply you think that morality is just down to the opinions of man, as I've already explained briefly, you can justify horrific things in society if you are willing to accept the decrees of someone else as the truth of right and wrong. If everyone actually came together and understood objectively what it means to be a good person, then we can all come together, and that is the thing that will bring the most unity and the most freedom. When thinking about things that are objective, think of gravity, for example. It does not matter how I feel on a certain day or what I say, what I do, gravity exists. If someone walks off of a cliff, they are going to go splat on the bottom. That does not matter. Nothing is going to change that. It depends on nothing. It is objective. It is a law, you could say. If we are living in a time where the general consensus of what people think is actually what's taken as what it means to be a good person, once again, we can justify horrific things. And we've seen that in the past. If you took the decrees of Nazi Germany as whole truth, then you would see it completely fine and justified to lock up Jews or someone just because they're a different colour or a different race. You would see it completely justified and even necessary that we lock them up and do horrific things to them. That is only one of the examples of what a morally subjective, morally relative society actually justifies. But in fact, if we all understand the key similarities and the objective fact of the matter with morality, it will never change, no matter what. And if we stick to these principles, these first things, then we can have that as the foundation of a truly free and abundant society. So what I'm going to present to you as this objective morality fact of the matter, once again, it is not complicated. It is written on the human heart, and it is actually, or it should be, common sense. But instead, it has been beaten out of us, it has been confused, it has been muddied up. Simply, as I stated in the very, very start, what it means to be a good person, it comes down to do no harm. The best way that one can understand morality objectively is through the philosophy, the law of natural law. You may not have heard this term before. It's for that exact reason why society is the way it is now. Because if everyone understood what natural law really is, we would be in a much better situation. And natural law, believe it or not, is the most hidden, the most secret, the most occulted secret of secrets of all secret societies on the earth throughout ancient history and now. This is because those that are in power and those that create the laws and legislation and make up the rules and wear these fancy clothes and in these fancy buildings, they are the ones that actually want to say, I am the master, I come up with what's right and wrong, you must listen to me, you must obey without question, otherwise I'm going to put you in a cage and harm you. Those people, whether they know it or not, are actually the ones, they are the gatekeepers of this information. If everyone understood natural law as the key, as the foundation of morality and being a good person, then we would not need a single person to write a single word in any book explaining the fines or the punishments for anything, or the rules and legislations for anything. If we simply understand this key core philosophy, society is on the path to greatness. So natural law is a universal set of moral principles. Natural law is unchangeable, eternal, immutable. binding and non-man-made. Natural law is a quite wide term, I will admit, but it has nothing to do with Darwin. Nothing to do with survival of the fittest, natural selection, the law of the jungle. It actually comes down to doing no harm, and in fact, more widely, adhering to the exact principles and logical workings of what nature intended us to do. It is all logic based. It is not based on the decrees of any person. It is simply discovered, understood, and then acted upon. So the reason why this do no harm is so crucial is because if we simply understand this beyond just on its face, we understand every situation that we come across is going to be easy to judge whether it should or shouldn't be done. It doesn't need to have previous examples. It doesn't have to have case studies and laws and precedents. It simply is just a gathering of principles and logic-based understanding. So, of course, I'm going to have to expand this idea of doing no harm, because some may say, what is harm? Harm is subjective. I may feel pain when someone else might not, or some people might enjoy pain. Well, it all comes down to property. Once again, this is all logic-based. This is not based on opinion at all. So think of it like this. Property exists, whether you like it or not. You may take that as a bold blanket statement or a opinion. But actually, whether you like it or not, you have rightful property. What determines this rightful property is, once again, quite simple. If you've rightfully attained something, so you've attained something without harming another person, which we're of course going to get into the explanation of what harm is. You've harmed no one. You're responsible for the upkeep and the preservation and ownership of the thing. And it's yours. However, I'm not saying that property is eternal. I'm not saying that it's infinite. It might just be for the brief moment while we're alive that we can own things. We can give them away to other people. This can be shifted. And this might even have to have a whole episode in of itself of what it means to have property. But you must understand that all rights are based on property rights. So most importantly, you own your body. I hope that you don't disagree in that sentiment, because then you're in some real trouble, because if you don't own your body, then who does? So one thing that is guaranteed is that you own your own body. When you were born, you are, once again, whether you like it or not, you are placed with this vessel of life. For the brief moment of time that you are alive, you do own this body, and therefore you are responsible for it. And so if someone comes along and says that your body now belongs to me, then we're in some trouble, because they have just claimed ownership upon your body. And so before we start even discussing the ownership of actual items, let's begin with the body itself, because quite honestly, all rights, all harm comes from this. So continuing with this idea of you own your body, no one else can own it. No one else can claim the rightful ownership of it. So if someone was to come along and claim any ownership upon it, if they say that you must do something without your consent, they have claimed ownership upon your body there and then. They've said that your body, your soul belongs to me. You must do this thing, otherwise I'm going to punish you. That on its face is a form of immorality. So to put this easier, we can see all morality as theft, as do not steal. If we understand simply that do not steal and do no harm as the foundation of being a good person, we are more than halfway to the big picture. Every form of wrongdoing is a form of theft. It is all a violation of our consent. There are 7 transgressions or breakings of morality. They are all forms of theft or stealing. So, wrongdoings can actually be put down into 7 things. The true 7 deadly sins, not the ones we're told about in the Bible, which are actually the 7 vices. Lust, gluttony, envy, things like that. They're vices. They're things we shouldn't do, but they are not the key things that are wrong. The 7 that are actually wrong, all are a form of theft. We have murder, which is the theft of life, the stealing of your property called life, your whole entire body and being and existence. They're stealing that. Murder. Theft is, of course, the stealing of property. If someone steals your wallet on the street, or they go into your house and steal your television, they're stealing your property. That is theft. That's a wrongdoing. Coercion. They are stealing your right to consent to something. If someone forces you to do something or say something, perhaps, or to not do something, they are stealing your right to choose, your right to freely do what you want to do. Theft. Once again. Assault. They are stealing your well-being. They're stealing your right to remain unharmed. They are unrightfully initiating aggression and theft upon you. Trespass. They are stealing your right to security and your right to remain safe, especially in your place of residency. If someone comes into your property without consent, they are stealing your right to have a safe space. Rape, which is the theft of the right to choose who you want to sexually associate with. Everyone hopefully should understand that that's not a right, a good thing. They are stealing your right to sexually associate. And then finally, deception, or perhaps willfully lying. This is the theft of someone's right to understand and have access to truth. If you're deceiving someone, you are stealing their right to actually understand and obtain the truth. So once again, the true transgressions against morality, the true wrongdoings of all of society, of all time: murder, theft, coercion, assault, rape, trespass, and willfully lying or deception. If we all simply understand these 7 things, and never do them, and understand that they are all theft of one's property, of one's well-being, one's choice, one's access to the truth, etc. If everyone understands this and never does any of these 7 things, we don't need anything else. We don't need a rule book saying, don't be gay, don't get married this time, or don't do this, don't do that. We don't need any of that stuff. And it's scarily simple to simply understand. If everyone understood deeply and stuck to these principles of not doing these 7 things, the rest is done. That may seem very simple, and in fact it is. It's written on the human heart, and like I say, if you ask a toddler or you show someone a video of someone murdering someone else just out of cold blood, 9 times out of 10 they're going to tell you that's a wrongdoing. It's because we almost intuitively understand that there is a time when we are stealing someone's life or just stealing someone's property. It's like I say, it's written on the human heart, it's written on the mind, it's written in our intuition or in our gut. But instead we've been confused and wishy-washied up into thinking that certain arbitrary, meaningless things and judgmental, based on time and location things are right and wrong, or they're based on religion, things like that. It doesn't need to be. They may correlate, and there may be things that we shouldn't actually do if we want to be a wise person. Like if you want to smoke whatever substance, that's your right to do. Is it a good idea? That's up for debate. It's probably not. But is it your right to do? Do you have the right to own your body and put anything inside of it that you desire, that you choose? Absolutely. But instead you'll see certain places and times when certain substances, alcohol for example in the past, illegal. What harm are you doing if you want to drink a bottle of wine all by yourself? Of course, if you go out and drink, if you drink that bottle of wine, get drunk and then go and punch someone in the face out of cold blood, that's a different story because you have assaulted them. But it's not the fault of the substance itself. You have the right to put anything in your body. And the problem is, the reason why this is so crucial is because when it comes to a time when people say you can't do certain things and you can't express your rights, which we're about to get into, slavery is what comes. When someone claims ownership upon the body, the rights and the fruits of the labour of someone else, that is slavery. If I say to you, you cannot drink that beer because I said so, because I don't believe that beer is good for you. Beer might certainly not be good for you, but do I have the right to say you can't drink it because I don't think that it's good for you? Absolutely not. You have the right to put anything into your own property and do anything with your own property that you desire, as long as it harms no other. Like I say, if you ingest a certain thing and then cause harm, it's the harm that you have done, which is the problem. That is the wrongdoing. But this is just an example of how stupid and how arbitrary it can be when someone says a certain substance is not good for you, or it's more likely to make you cause harm to someone else. On its principal foundational basis, it is immoral to claim that you cannot take that substance in your own body. For someone else to say, you cannot do this because I said so, as long as you have the right to do that, which we're about to get into, it is a right. It is not a wrongdoing. When someone claims that they are going to cage you or harm you because you did what they said you're not allowed to do, that is a form of slavery, because they are claiming the ownership upon your body, your rightful property. So I've been throwing around the words rights. And most people, when you ask them what is a human right, they're more than happy to tell you. We have a right to water, to food, to shelter, to have a shower. Of course, they play a role. That is very true. We do have the right to have the things that we need to survive. Should they be provided to us by some almighty being or some almighty government that, so lovely provides for you for free? No. Rights are not resources. Rights are not specific things. When in fact, and most people, 9.9, almost more than that, 9.9999 people out of 10 people will not tell you the correct answer about what it is, what human rights truly are. A human right, objectively, simply, is an action that does not cause harm to another sentient being. Let me reiterate. I have the right to go and have a walk in the park. I have a right to do a backflip. But I don't have a right to punch someone in the face if a fight is not occurring. That is the difference between a right and a wrong. These, once again, when we get into the realms of talking about specific things that are our rights, it very quickly gets into the point of people having different opinions, and there being consensuses, and people talking about Africa and stuff like that. Unnecessary. A right is an action that does not cause harm. I can simply have the right to do anything as long as it harms no one else. As long as what I do, my actions, do not transgress upon anyone else, or ultimately as long as I don't do any of the 7 things that I've previously mentioned, it is a right. I have the right to do heroin if I wanted to. Is it a good idea? No. That's a different story. And once again, if you take that substance and you do harm upon someone else, that is a harm, that is a wrongdoing, because you have done and initiated the harm upon them. But taking it upon the substance yourself, or doing something that does not harm another person, it does not steal from them in any way, it does not take their rightful property, that is a right. This is why it's so crucial, because if everyone understood that simply we all have the right to do whatever we want to do, whatever our hearts desire, we have the right to do that, as long as it steals from no one, as long as it transgresses upon no one, it steals no one's property, it harms no one. It's as simple as that. We don't need any funny rule books, we don't need any precedents in the courts and government. All things for another episode, but it's unnecessary, it's fluff, it's man-made nonsense. All that matters is, do you have the right to do something? Is what you are doing harmful upon another person? Does it steal their rightful property? So I hope I've illustrated that point well enough, at least for now. And finally, I just want to mention one of the keys to natural law that I speak of. This is cause and effect. I will much greatly get into more detail in a future episode about what cause and effect really is, as it is one of the laws of creation that governs everything. But natural law is cause and effect. Every action has a reaction. This should be common sense, and with most people it is, but we actually more refer this to science instead of just day-to-day things. Everything that you do has a reaction. Everything that you do has an effect. And the reason why this is so important is because no belief is required to understand these moral principles. We can simply see through cause and effect that morality is existent, objectively and inherently, eternally in the universe. Moral law and morality and the effects of things are observable over time. They are studyable. You can see them for yourself. And now the reason I mention this is because it helps us understand more deeply and helps us actually scientifically test these moral laws that I speak about, just so that it's not a case of me sitting here saying this is what it means to be good, when actually someone could say, what about this and what about this? We can observe societally, especially through cause and effect, what something is right and what something is wrong. When we initiate harm upon someone else, when we steal something which is not ours, when we claim ownership over someone else and their property without right, we can see the effects of this, especially over time and especially over larger numbers. There are consequences for our actions. If you get a society that's full of people that understand these 7 things, these 7 transgressions, if everyone just inherently as common sense understands these things, we will be able to almost immediately see the consequences of being freedom, of minimal crime, of minimal harm being done. Whereas if we instead look at a society where everyone thinks that morality is a different thing, or there's slight differences, or over different countries, times and places, that something's right and something isn't, or the dogma that religion has us believing, we can see through the effects of these 2 different societies who is more free, who is enslaved, and who is more moral. This is easily studyable, and this is why this is natural law. This is objective and not just opinion, because you can test this yourself. You can even do it on the solo level. If you live a month making sure that you live by these 7 principles and you do no harm to anyone else, you will be able to see you have done no wrongdoing. You'll be able to see that you harm no other. You'll be able to see that freedom is the only outcome that can come about this. Whereas if you walk around thinking that your opinion is the basis of what is right, you'll be able to see the chaotic and the confusing and the harmful outcomes of this. Once again, I will have a future video on this because it's quite a large term and it's hard to not just waffle about it, but simply we can study this. It is the scientific method. It is studyable, it is measurable over time, and it is testable, especially using a method called the trivium, which hopefully you've heard of by now, but if you haven't, I will talk about it in a future episode. But for now, simply understand these 7 transgressions that we must not do. That a human right is an action that harms no other, and that harm itself is the theft and the claim of ownership upon someone else and their rightful property. And once again, if you want to go out and test this after you've watched this video, try for yourself. Have a year where you eat absolute junk food and you just don't care about what you eat and how many calories and how much salt and fat you eat. Look how healthy you're going to be at the end of that, versus being super healthy, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of water, things like that. You are going to be able to see the outcome, both either positive or negative, from either of those. Similarly, when you study that and see its cause and effect, you can see the cause and effect of morality, of doing no harm versus having subjective, man-made rules. Similarly, if everyone lives with poor ethics and arbitrary morality, we are going to see societal breakdown. And for another episode, I'm going to talk about how damaging this moral relativism is on our society. Because if everyone's confused and different on what they actually think is good or bad, or once again, if they just think that being nice is a good thing, is the be all and end all of being good, we are going to see immense suffering. And if you don't understand your rights, if you don't know your rights, you do not have the ability to say no. And once we lose that ability to say no, we are going to be past the tipping point. We're going to be in a horrible time, a time of dystopia. And the reason why I'm here now is because I'm seeing it get worse and worse. And for as long as that continues, things are going to get worse. But instead, if people simply understood these very basic laws and principles, and these become common sense, common knowledge, and people understand them deeply and do not give up and do not give any ground to anything else, they stick by these principles, we will be in a much better place. And once again, this will be the foundation of progress and freedom, because morality and freedom are directly proportional, as we'll see in the future. So finally, I urge you to go out and study this. This is only the tip of the iceberg, and I'm only just a young student of this information still, but I urge that you go out and test this for yourself. Live in a certain way, and then compare that to the ways that I suggest here, and you'll be able to see the outcome of slavery and freedom, chaos versus order. You'll be able to see this readily, and you can study it. And when you see that for yourself, let me know, because I'm all more than happy to hear the outcomes of your testing. So finally, I urge you to deeply contemplate what you actually think is right and wrong, and what you actually think is a good thing, what is a bad thing, what is conscience, what is right, what are human rights. These sort of questions that people just overlook when they try to ask all the big questions. Why are we here? What is God? They ask all these big questions first, when actually all they simply need to start with is, what does it mean to be a good person? That's why I've started with this. Once we have conscience, once we take responsibility for our actions, and once we stop advocating the harm upon other people, and we stop advocating this moral relative nonsense, only then can we see true progress, and only then will we bring human freedom. You can know what's right. You can do the right thing, and it's never too late. Once you live by moral principles, you will see your life greatly improve. And if we do this societally in large, we cannot even comprehend the beauty and freedom and abundance that we can create. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's not perfect by any means, but there's a long way to go. I hope that you can appreciate this information and perhaps share it to others. Until next time, never forget, do no harm. This has been Morality Matters. See you next time.